Wow, we have definitely flown through our POD journey. We've learned how to research our designs and niches and validate those. We've learned about pricing strategies, listing, getting those first sales. We've learned about customer support and sales metrics. Once we've kind of figured all of this out, though, we can't just stop. We have to keep things going, and we have to optimize. So, who better to tell us about that than e-commerce extraordinaire, Chris Heckman. Now, you've already been on this stage and the high volume stage, but for those who may not know, who are you real quick? What's your background?
So my name is Chris Heckman. I've been doing e-commerce for the past 7 or 8 years, built 8 different brands to 7 figures and beyond, and made a lot of mistakes along the way. So that's the goal here today. Everything's been on Shopify, built a lot of different brands, and we figured out a pretty good formula that works pretty well. The good news is that it's pretty simple. We're going to cover that today.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, to say that you know what you're doing would be an understatement. You definitely know what you're doing. Can you take us through this process of optimization and what it means?
Absolutely. So I think to start off, like, what is store optimization? Something that has personally helped me a lot, like really understand the concept, is this idea of picturing our Shopify store as part of a funnel. And picturing like a funnel that you would find in your kitchen. If you put in traffic in the top or you put water in the top, you ideally want to get roughly the same amount out the bottom, or as close to it as possible. And if we have that, then we're in a good spot. Like, that's the ideal situation. But the problem is that that is not normally the case. Normally, there are a lot of holes in the funnel, a lot of leaks that look like these. And the bad thing about that is that that is where our precious water is leaking out in all these different spots. And what that results in is us putting in 2x traffic in the top and not getting the same return out the bottom. And that is not what we want. And this process that we're going to go through is really bridging the gap between the funnel, the metaphor we just talked about, where you're putting in water or traffic in the top. How do we make sure that we're getting the most out the bottom? And more importantly, how do we identify where these leaks are? And the best tool set that we have for that, and we're going to be talking more about this, is our Shopify Analytics dashboard. And specifically within here, and what we're going to be talking about today, is the conversion rate in the bottom corner. This is basically our window view into what is going on in our funnel. Where are those leaks happening? And then how can we clog those holes to make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck? And why we want to do this is when you have it, ultimately we make more money at the end of the day. And even more importantly to our customers, our products, our beautifully designed products we've been talking about all day long, end up in more people's hands. We're able to have bigger impact on the world, broader reach, build a brand that means something to us, our family, friends, and our customers. It's a really cool thing when we're able to do that. But a really important first step is optimizing the funnel, because when we don't have that, basically our products flutter around in the ether and maybe never end up in anybody's hands, even if they are, perfectly good products that we, spend a lot of time optimizing. And to make this even more real, obviously replacing water with money, this is exactly what we're doing when we are building our Shopify store. We are putting money in the top in the form of paid ads or investing in organic content. We're investing that, and we want to make sure that we have this kind of scenario where we're putting in $100 in the top, getting at least $200, hopefully closer to $400 out of the bottom. But if we're not doing that, if we are the leaky funnel type of situation, we have a non-optimized store. And what that results in is us putting in $100, getting $150 back maybe. Then after product costs, it's not really what we want to be aiming for. Even worse, we see some sellers that they have great products, they have a great niche, they've done everything right, but they're putting in $100 to get $100 back, which after cost of goods and all of that, you're not really making anything at the end of the day, if not losing money. The good news is that I know that this can feel ambiguous, but we're going to get into some very specific and tangible things that you can look for in your own store to make sure that you are the former of the two. You have the optimized store. So
basically, just kind of recap, you've done all this work so far, right?
Yep.
To build your brand or your designs, find the products, your customers, and then you're putting it into your store. But again, if your store is not optimized, all that work kind of goes to waste, right?
Exactly. It's like, picture if you had a brick and mortar store and if you have amazing products on the shelves, but if there's quicksand in the aisles for people to navigate to the products, and then when they finally get up to the register, for some reason the cashier says, well, if you want to buy that, you have to pay $15 in shipping for your t-shirt. little things like that you might not catch in your first go over on your store make a massive difference in the user or the customer's experience with you. So it's those little things we want to look out for. And the good news is that there's very like specific things that we can do on our store that we're about to talk about.
I definitely would not want to shop in a store that has quicksand in the aisles.
It'd be brutal. I've done it once, would not recommend it. Not a good time.
We're going to have to hear more about that later. Okay, so obviously we don't want to be leaking Benjamins in our funnel. What are kind of these first things that we're looking for?
Yeah, so when we're trying to optimize our store, there are a couple of main pages, and we talked about the funnel earlier today in like the paid ad stage, but to break it down really quickly, there's like 3 or 4 main pages we want to look at. So we have the collection page. Notice we just skipped right over the home page because we drive our traffic to the collection page. So we care about this page first. And this is where we're seeing all of our products laid out in a nice, easy row that makes it easy for people to shop, see everything that we have available, and then ultimately get them to click over to our product page. Then we have our cart page, and we're going fast because we're going to loop back on all of these. Then we have our cart page, and then we have our checkout page. So all of these pages together, we're looking at them on desktop because it's nice, big, easy pictures to look at. But the real thing, and if you take anything away from this, it's this. We want to be looking at all of these pages on mobile. And if you're in Shopify, for example, they show you your desktop view by default. So anytime you're making tweaks in your store, just something for anybody who's a beginner out there, make sure that you go to the top corner in your online store and you switch it to mobile. So you're looking at it how over 80% of your traffic and your customers are ultimately going to be seeing your store. So optimize for mobile first, where your collection page is going to look something like this. Your product page will look something like that. Then your cart, and then ultimately your checkout. And now we can jump over to one of my old stores that we used to run called History Tees to get an example of how we would optimize the store. And what we're going to do is point out just like what are the key points, what are the key takeaways that beginner sellers should be making sure that they have on their pages. So if we go over to the collection page, so a couple of things to point out right off the bat is we want to make sure that we have a announcement bar at the top that's a different color than anywhere else on the site, and that has something related to either free shipping or some kind of discount or deal to incentivize people so that people see that right at the very top and it gets them in that buyer mode, like giving them something to work towards. Then scrolling further down, you want to have a clean collection title that clearly states, the point of the collection, and picturing that a lot of people, they're going to be landing on your site and seeing that first. And this is one of those subtle examples of something that as a beginner seller, I didn't realize this for a long time, like how important that is. I used to just throw, any name up there thinking, who really cares? But it's actually so important when you think about this on mobile. The very first thing people are seeing is this, and then whatever your description is. And I see a lot of, beginner sellers, understandably just filling it in with like a short description of the products and stuff. It's not what we want to do. We want to make sure it's short, succinct, and delivers something that builds trust with our audience.
I think people have quite a short attention span these days, too, shopping on mobile. They want to get right to the product. They don't want to read a bunch of stuff. So it makes sense.
Exactly. And to that point, nobody wants to read things. They just want clean, clear, crisp images that really display and we won't get into mockups too much in this because that's a whole nother talk, but the mockup really makes up a huge percentage of how effective our collection page is. Like, for example, if there was extra space on the edge of this mockup that made the shirt and then the design smaller overall, not a big deal on desktop. But picturing, again, somebody on mobile where it's, about yay big, when the shirt's even tinier, pretty hard to pick for the customer to picture themselves wearing that shirt, which is ultimately what everybody is doing at one point or another as they're considering buying. So the mock-up image or the design image is really important. Next thing I see a lot of beginner sellers doing is the product titles. They do not need to be a exact word-for-word description of what is in the design or the product. Just 3-4 words, absolute max, plus the word T-shirt or whatever the product type is at the very end. Clean, succinct. Don't make it, a biography about the shirt. And then next is you don't need to have these color swatches or size options. These are optional. Like, for example, on our other store here, seasonal collections. Great, simple store, vibrant colors, nice, clean mock-ups. But you notice, not a whole lot going on. There's no, fancy widgets or apps or thingamajigs popping out at us. We don't need every app that's under the sun. It's just really good products, clean and simple shopping experience, simple product titles, compare app prices, all of that together, it really isn't, I don't know, does it seem underwhelming, like what actually works?
No, it's very clean and very attractive, I think. And one thing I want to point out about the product titles, you're saying simple. I'm seeing most of them are 3, 2, 4 words, totally different than the titles we see on Etsy.
Exactly.
Right? So different functions. And if you're transitioning from Etsy to Shopify or standalone, that's something to consider. It's a very common thing to do as you're getting more experience. So yeah, keep it simple on Shopify or any other standalone store.
That's a great point. And you can think of it as, if you're familiar with like, you post Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, how it's like the same product or same content, but just with different packaging on different platforms. Very similar thing applies to like Etsy versus Amazon versus Shopify. Having great products, there's absolutely no replacement for that. But the beautiful thing, and if anybody is an Etsy seller considering Shopify, great like takeaway from this is that your products that are selling well on Etsy can do very well on Shopify. It's all about the packaging, which is what we're talking about here. And then moving on next to the all-important product page. This page, again, there's a lot of apps and things that you can load onto it, but the biggest like 80-20 principle things is having, again, you have your short, clean title. Then we have a really nice and easy to use size chart, which we use. We're going to get into the apps in just a second, but sizing is one of the biggest questions that customers have when considering a purchase about apparel specifically. Then next is the number of colors. It's very, very tempting. Printify does a great job of having a wide variety of all the different colors you could possibly want, which is great like on Etsy, but on Shopify, for example, people, they really appreciate being just given the best choices, like 4, 5, 6 colors, maybe max, but you don't feel the need, you don't have to, load up everything. People keep it simple.
We've actually found that offering about 3 to 5, maybe 6 color variations is the optimal to go for. Offer some of those best-selling colors, white, black, grays, navies, and then throw in a couple extra colors that could fit with your niche or design or your customers.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next thing to take away is the add to cart button versus the quick pay option. This really increases conversion rate. This is done natively. Everything we're looking at pretty much is very close to the basic Shopify theme that you have right when you log in. And early on, I tried adding every app under the sun, tried to make the biggest, most beautiful site. At the end of the day, this is what converted by far the best. So
I think that's a big misconception too, is that people think, especially beginners, oh, I need to have this, I need to do this, I need to buy this app, I need this app. But you're just proving that you really don't need that.
Yeah, and it's not even the seller's fault. It's that the marketing of all of those apps, and it's not their fault either. It's their job to market it. They do such a good job of making it seem like you need all of these apps. And at the end of the day, which we're going to talk about in just a second, you don't really need, it really just clutters things up and distracts from the most important thing, which is letting your product shine, making sure that you're making more designs that the customer wants. But moving on, further on down the page, we have trust seals, which, again, these are very clean and simple. Just talking about your guarantee, your shipping, return policies, those kind of things. And then onto your descriptions. This is where I see a lot of beginner sellers kind of going wild, having a lot of fun with like super descriptive paragraphs of text. It's all well and fine. Like, I'm sure the sentiment is really good. Just take that and turn it into bullet points and do something fun. Like here we have some flowers, which is on brand. Then if we look over at history tees, we do the same thing, but break it down with different kinds of emojis. I'll just highlight it so you guys can't really read it. Isn't that convenient for you? But so there's different emojis. You can customize it, have fun with it. Just make it clean, simple, easy to read, and that's all you need.
I'm trying to visualize how this would be on a phone also. You know, it's very clean. Emojis show up very nice on a phone. It just points out everything. Here, this. Okay, easy.
Right, exactly. And then further on down the page, you have, and these are the most important aspects to have, so you have customers also bought, basically product recommendations. And if you think about it, if you scroll down on Amazon's product page, they have at the very top the product, then at the very bottom they have customer reviews. In between there, if you ever go through and count sometime, it's fascinating, to me at least, I'm an e-commerce nerd. There's like 5 or 6 layers of different recommended products, which tells us something, that it works, and it helps us, especially on stores like these, it helps us continue the shopping experience, because people are browsing just for fun sometimes, and like helping them get into that, opposed to, imagine if you click on this product page and then there's nothing down here. It just ends, and you just end up with like the footer. It's not as exciting, and you end up having a lot of people, dropping off ultimately. Then we have a couple of different colors. And then last thing that I'll point out is on the collection page, another subtle thing that some sellers mess up, or me personally, I mess it up a lot, so maybe other people are, is making sure that you have your best-selling color as the primary image. And then another subtle thing is make sure that you are switching between the two colors. Like, for example, like you don't want to have just charcoal gray for every product all the way down the collection page because it wouldn't look as good. So what we try to do is alternate back and forth so that it's like an engaging, more diverse catalog for people to look at.
It looks really good with the alternating colors. Now, you also mentioned that we need to optimize the checkout page. Can you show us that?
Yeah, so the checkout page, the beautiful thing and the cart, very simple. And going back to the slides we were talking about with the conversion rate, you have the add to cart rate. That's the collection page and product page, which we just looked at. Next number in there is the reach checkout rate. And the reach checkout is how many people added to cart and then clicked that button right there. So the good news is that if that number is really low, that tells us that there's only one spot that something could be going wrong. So we're able to hone in on that one spot and like figure out why are people not clicking that button. Normally it's something's blocking it, a pop-up, whatever. Because on this page, the checkout page, very, very few things we're actually able to optimize, which is kind of a blessing in a way because we know that there's only one or two variables we can play with here, which is like our shipping rate, for example. So making sure that you have good shipping rates for like 1 and 2 shirt orders. And then we typically do free shipping for $75 plus. And that helps us increase conversion rate along with our average order value.
Not just a good shipping rate, but also being transparent about your shipping prices so they're not kind of surprised at this checkout page and think, whoa, I'm not paying that much for shipping.
Yeah, exactly. And to bring this like kind of full circle, we can talk next about what are the low-hanging fruit, like the apps that we recommend that give us the most bang for our buck. Like I said, there are plenty of shiny objects we can spend a lot of money on. Good news, we don't need to do pretty much any of that because the apps that we use when it comes to our site management is first up, bulk product editor. And this one is great for like the product titles things we just mentioned. If you're like, oh crap, now I have to go change all those titles, like I have quotation marks and too many words, just bulk product edit, it can do changes like that, descriptions, all in one go. And it's...
How many products do you typically have in a Shopify store?
We start with about 100, and then at around 150 is where we start to see like real profitability. But we aim for 100 every time.
Yeah, so you wouldn't want to go in and edit all of those titles one by one, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we used to do that until we found out that this app exists, and it was life-changing. And next, to really speed up our site speed, this one is super simple. It's $5 a month. Crush Picks, it basically takes all your product images and shrinks them down to a smaller file size, and that increases your conversion rate. And it's my favorite thing, one click, and it's done. And next, we have Kiwi Size Chart, which, like we talked about, having a sizing chart is absolutely crucial for selling apparel. And then out of all those recommended product sections, frequently bought together is one that we see a lot of shoppers take us up on, which is like picturing Amazon again. If you have product 1 plus product 2 plus product 3, add all 3 to cart. That's what that does, and it also helps out with our average order value. Then on the marketing side, these are the only apps that we really use. Facebook and Instagram is essentially for our Facebook pixel and catalog, completely free app. Then we have Klaviyo, which is for email marketing. In the beginning, Shopify email marketing, it's a really good head start. Like, and we won't get into the email marketing rabbit hole, but they set up a lot of great automation. So this is one that you can punt like way down the field and not worry about until you're doing consistent sales. And very similar to our Facebook and Instagram app is our Google and YouTube. Acts the same way, but adds Google Analytics as well. Then one of my personal favorites is GoAF Pro because it's completely free and it allows us to, with one click essentially, set up an affiliate marketing program where customers that come to our site are able to sign up and start promoting. And you'll be actually surprised how many like beginner sellers, they put this up and the next day they're writing, hey, like 5 people signed up to be affiliates. And they're like, are they real? I'm like, you look at them, they're real people, and they actually start promoting like with just setting up a free app. It's pretty crazy.
Let the other people do the work for you.
Exactly. Then next we have Push Out, which is those awesome notifications that show up at the top of the bar. For fulfillment, there's not really any other choice. Printify, customer service. There's Gorgeous, which that's the pricier option. In the meantime, highly recommend just going with Gmail. It's super advanced, but it gets the job done. Then Reviews. Looks is the more expensive option, but Judge, in the meantime, in the very beginning, does an awesome job. Recommend getting started there. I know we covered a lot of different ground there, but all in all, my biggest takeaway for anybody who's considering getting started on Shopify is that there's no replacement for having really good products. Keep your store simple and watch your numbers, and the rest will come with time.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Chris. That was the last session for the Hit Play stage. Join Martin and a few of our reps, TikTok, Wix, Hello Custom, and Amazon will be on the high volume stage to talk about cashing in on Q4.